Well, this is our last in our series on fire. And today we're going to read the words of the Lord from the Gospel of John, the 15th chapter. Jesus says, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already pruned, because the words I have spoken to you. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If someone remains in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples." Tomorrow, 34 of us will be going to the Boundary Waters to spend some time in God's glorious creation there on the border of Minnesota and Canada. How many of you have ever paddled and canoed anywhere? A few of you? Well, a lot of you have canoed. You probably used a paddle that's something like this, long and straight. And they work okay. But what if you could paddle more miles with less effort? Get more results without having to work so hard? Well, you can. But you need a paddle that's like this. Now, it looks like it's been run over by a car. It's all bent. In fact, the brand name of this paddle is Bending Branches. But there's a reason for this crazy shape of a paddle. You see, when you use a normal-shaped canoe paddle, much of the time, you're either trying to push the water down or push it up. You start like this, and you're pushing down, and only right here are you pushing straight back. And then you're trying to pull that water up, so you lose a lot of your energy. It goes into pushing water in the wrong direction. But use a bent paddle, and most of the time, the paddle is going straight back, and you get the most effort. Get the most results for the least effort, actually. It's wonderful that they make these kinds of paddles. Now, of course, they have to use modern tools and heat and everything to get this bend in the paddle. But in the natural world, dead wood like this doesn't bend. Only living branches bend. And living branches is what Jesus calls us to be. He says, "I am the vine, and you are the branches." Imagine a grapevine, if you will, with all these branches coming off of it. And the branches split into other branches and into more branches. But each branch is connected to each other, and all of them are connected to the vine. Where do the branches get their water from? They don't soak it up out of the air. It comes through the vine. And their thirst is quenched, and they grow strong. Where do the branches get their fertilizer? It comes up through the roots and into the vine, and they are fed. Where do they get the support they need to rise up above the dirt and the weeds that would choke them out? And to be able to reach for the sun, well, that too comes from the vine. Jesus says, "I am the vine, and you are the branches. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Apart from me, you will thirst for life, but will always be dry. Apart from me, you will hunger for food that the world can't give. Apart from me, your life will be left in the dirt, choked by the weeds of evil, injustice, and self-deception. Cut off from the life that the Son brings, the Son of God. And apart from me, you will have unfruitful lives." This is the time of year for summer fruits. What are your favorites? Do you like the strawberries of June or the raspberries and blueberries of July, or maybe those first red apples of August? Really, it's all good. I like it all. But only a living branch can produce that fruit. And only a branch that's connected lives. No branch can bear fruit by itself, says Jesus. It must remain in the vine. We must remain connected to Jesus and connected to each other. There's an old story that I've told before about a pastor visiting around a campfire with someone who hadn't been to church in a long time. "Why don't you come to worship?" she asked. "Well, I'm awfully busy on Sundays, with the kids and the chores and the lake. And besides, I don't need a bunch of other people to be a Christian. I can do that on my own," the person replies. And the pastor simply looks into the glowing fire, and then without saying anything, takes a stick and moves one red-hot coal away from the rest. Slowly, the coal grows dark and gray as the fire in it begins to go out. And then the pastor takes the stick again and moves that coal back towards the fire. And once again, it begins to glow and come alive. The camper simply smiles and says, "I'll see you on Sunday, Pastor." When we do not stay connected to Jesus and connected to each other, the fire goes out and life gets hard. Our power fades and we grow weary. Jesus puts it even more starkly in his lesson today. "My Father is the gardener," he says. "He cuts off every branch in me that does not bear fruit. And if anyone does not remain in me, they are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned." In Jesus' story, you don't want to be in the fire. It's one thing to be on fire for Jesus, but it's quite another thing to be a dead branch that breaks off and is burned with the trash. Living branches bend and move and grow stronger. Dead branches get burned. I mentioned summer fruits a bit ago, and I like them all, but the very best summer fruit is one that you can't get here, at least not very easily. And that is a fresh, tree-ripened peach. And I'm not talking about those peaches that they pick as hard as a baseball and then ship up here a month before they're ripe. I'm talking about one that is hung on the tree to receive the full summer sun so that it is sweet and melts in your mouth like velvet ice cream. A real peach. These are the kind of peaches you get when you go to a stand down south, where the owner's son and grandmother are still sitting in the shade, watching over their kingdom of wooden peach baskets. Whenever I've been in South Carolina in August, I always make sure to stop at one of these stands and buy a bushel of peaches like these and a cup of boiled peanuts. Now, of course, I don't get to go down to South Carolina too often. So imagine how excited I was last year when for the very first time the peach tree that I planted in my own yard yielded peaches.